Welcome to my channel, where the scariest stories come to life. Before we dive into today's chilling tale, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. Now, let's get into the horror.
It was mid-January, and snow had been falling every single day. I work from home, so I didn't have to deal with the freezing weather much, aside from grocery runs and quick walks with my dog. On this particular day, the snow was heavy and the wind felt sharp enough to cut skin. I had back-to-back Zoom meetings, but the internet was acting up. By 6 o'clock, my connection dropped entirely, and I decided to call it a night. The sky was already dark. I bundled up and took my dog, Gracie, outside. The wind was brutal. While she sniffed around, I noticed someone standing near the road. They weren't moving, just standing there, facing in my general direction. Normally, I wouldn't think too much of it, but with weather that bitter, it felt strange. I didn't stick around to figure it out. I hurried back inside and dried off Gracie's paws. We curled up on the couch under a few blankets while I flipped on the news, hoping to catch any weather alerts. Only a few minutes had passed when Gracie perked her head up. Her ears twitched, and then she began growling softly at the front door. The curtains were closed, so I couldn't see anything outside. I walked over to check. That's when I noticed footprints in the snow on the patio. Someone was out there, walking back and forth in tight circles, like they had been pacing. I saw the shadow of a man pass by again before he moved toward the side of the house and disappeared. I stood still for a while, listening. Gracie stopped growling and laid back down, so I returned to the couch. I wasn't sure what to make of it. It was odd, but not necessarily a reason to panic. I kept watching Gracie just in case she reacted again. The rest of the evening was quiet. Around 10, I took her out one last time. The snow was falling heavier than before, and the cold hit like a punch. I figured no one would be wandering around in weather like that. After we came back in, I got ready for bed and went upstairs. Sometime later, I was somewhere between sleep and being awake when I opened my eyes and noticed Gracie. She was standing at my bedroom door, tail tucked and ears high. She wasn't moving, just staring. I whispered her name, but she didn't come over. That wasn't like her. I felt a knot forming in my stomach. I got out of bed quietly and crept over to the door. I pressed my ear against it. The house was silent. I reached for the doorknob and was just about to unlock it when it started turning in my hand, slowly. Someone was on the other side, trying to open the door. My breath caught in my throat. I stayed still for it first, frozen with fear, but then the movement became rougher. They were trying to force it open. At that point, I knew they were aware I was in there. I sprinted across the room, grabbed my phone, and called 911. While speaking to the operator, I searched the closet and grabbed the only thing that looked usable as a weapon, a clothing iron. But the second I started moving around, everything outside the door fell silent. The knob stopped turning. No footsteps, no sound at all. I told the operator I needed help right away. I think it took the police about 10 minutes to arrive. When they entered, the house was empty. The front door was wide open. The lock hadn't been broken, probably picked. Snowy footprints trailed through the hallway. Whoever had been inside wasn't after money or valuables. They were after me. That was the last anyone ever saw of them. No prints beyond the house, no leads. Just someone who came and left in the snow, leaving behind nothing but fear. I still live in the same place. The only reason I'm able to sleep at night is knowing Gracie is always watching the door.
A long time ago, when I was still in elementary school, something happened that still sends chills down my spine. My school had very strict rules about safety. Kids were not allowed to leave the school alone. every parent had to show a special laminated card with their child's name and grade before they could pick them up. The front gate was always guarded. A staff member would let parents in after checking their cards. Once inside, the parents would find their child sitting with the others on the grass. Then they would leave through another exit where a second staff member would check the card again along with the child. One afternoon, I was waiting like usual. My mom was running a little late, but I wasn't worried. I sat on the grass chatting with my friends. Out of nowhere, I noticed a woman I didn't recognize waving in my direction. At first, I thought she was waving at someone else. But then I looked around and realized no one else was near me. I pointed at myself, confused. She nodded. I didn't move. Instead, she came closer and smiled. She said something like, "Hi, sweetie, your mom sent me to pick you up today." I had never seen this woman in my life. Instantly, my guard went up. I asked her where the pickup card was. The moment I said that, her smile disappeared. She looked around nervously. Then she turned and walked away, quickly. From where I was sitting, I could see the street through the large gaps in the gate. I watched her head toward the back of the school. That area wasn't guarded like the front. A few seconds later, I saw her get into an old beat-up van with an older man behind the wheel. She didn't have a child with her. I still don't know how she managed to get inside the school without being stopped. Just minutes later, my mom arrived. When I told her what had happened, she was terrified. The following week, she spoke with the principal. After that, the school added better security at the back gate. Even now, I think about that moment often. I'm almost certain what her real intentions were. I feel lucky that she picked me instead of a younger or more trusting kid who might have followed her without asking questions.
Back in my 30s, I was going through a rough time. I lived in the tri-state area where Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia meet. It's a quiet rural region filled with open land and small towns. Jobs were hard to come by, and substance abuse was common. I had struggled with some of that in my younger years, which only made it harder to stay on my feet. By then I had cleaned up, but I still didn't have much to my name. I shared an old shack out in the hills with a few friends. The place barely stood upright, but we got to live there without paying rent as long as we worked for the landowner. In the warmer seasons, we'd harvest apples, berries, and whatever else grew on his land. He paid us a little and gave us shelter. In the winter, there wasn't much work, but we could pick up odd jobs if needed. One winter morning, after spending the night in Ironton, getting high at a friend's place, I woke up to find I had no way back home. My ride had to be at work and couldn't wait for me. It was freezing, flurries in the air, and I had no choice but to walk and hope for a ride. At a gas station, I ran into a cousin I hadn't seen in years. She lived near Chicago and must have been visiting family. I asked if she could take me all the way back, but she could only drop me off near the bridge that led back into Kentucky. After that, I was on my own. As I made my way through the countryside, not a single car stopped. I expected someone from the hills might offer help, but nobody did. The day dragged on, the sun started sinking, and the cold only grew worse. One truck passed me heading the opposite way, but even they didn't stop. Night fell. I was freezing, but I kept walking. I dreamed of getting home, warming up by the stove, crawling under blankets. Then headlights appeared. They got closer, fast. I barely jumped out of the way as a truck flew past me. It looked like the same one from earlier. Not long after, I smelled something in the air. Smoke. At first, I thought maybe someone had lit a fire nearby, but as I kept walking, I saw flames in the distance. My stomach dropped. The fire was coming from our property. When I finally got close, I saw everything was burning. The shack, the trees, the bushes. Flames lit up the night sky. I ran toward the house, terrified my friends might be inside, but there was no sign of anyone. I had to get help, and the landowner lived nearly an hour away on foot. Before I could start walking, his car pulled up. He had seen the fire and rushed over. I told him right away I hadn't done it. He believed me. He hadn't even suspected me. But what he said next shook me to my core. He looked at the flames and said, "You and your boys are lucky you weren't there. Knowing the kind of people around here, you'd all be dead right now. It hit me then. If my cousin had given me that ride, I would have arrived just in time to be caught in that fire. Whoever said it had been waiting. I missed them by less than an hour.
Back in the late 70s, I worked a short stint at a tiny liquor store run by my family. Everyone who worked there was related in some way, and back then the drinking age was still 18. We got a steady stream of teenagers coming in, many of them already drunk and just looking for more. It was a rough crowd sometimes, but usually nothing I couldn't handle. That year, we stayed open on Christmas Eve. I volunteered to work since the rest of my family had plans. I didn't mind. It was snowing outside, peaceful, and business was slow. I spent most of the shift listening to Christmas music on the radio. At some point that evening, a teenage boy rolled up on a bicycle. He staggered into the store, clearly drunk. So drunk, in fact, he nearly knocked over the small Christmas tree we had set up by the entrance. When I asked him for ID, he wouldn't show it. I didn't need to see it anyway. He was underage, and I wasn't about to sell him anything. That's when he lost it. He started yelling and cursing, stomping around and throwing out threats. I stood my ground. Eventually, when he realized I wasn't giving in, he shoved the tree over, slammed the door behind him, and pedaled off into the snow. Later that night, after I locked up and turned the lights off, I heard a sound at the front door. The entrance was an old wooden door, and there was no way to see who was on the other side. I shouted that we were closed. No reply. Then silence. I figured it was just another drunk and went back to cleaning up. Suddenly, there was a loud crash. I turned just in time to see the blade of an axe split through the door. It came in once, then again. I froze. The pounding stopped, but now I heard voices outside. One of them was yelling. I crept to a window and peeked outside. The kid from earlier was standing near a pickup truck, and next to him was an older man shouting at him. He shoved the boy hard against the truck more than once. The kid didn't fight back at all. The man grabbed the axe and tossed it into the back of the truck. Then he forced the boy into the passenger seat, got in himself, and drove off into the dark. It all happened so fast, and it was too dark for me to catch the license plate. I assumed the man was his father. Judging by how furious he was, I figured the boy was in for a brutal Christmas. I saw that kid a couple more times after that, always on his bike, but he never stepped foot in the store again, and he never said a word to me.
Thanks for sticking around till the end. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to give the video a like and leave a comment with your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a terrifying tale. See you in the next one.